everybody. It's Heather with the Leadership with Heart podcast. And today I am super duper thrilled to have Mark Hardcastle on. If you have seen anything out there, and if you haven't, you'll go check out. I captured a video of this gentleman, the captain of a flight, a United Airlines flight I was on, speaking to us. And I will make sure we may actually show a little preview of it, but it's already on social. I've already put out there and it's getting kind of semi-viral attention all over the place.
Trusting me and my crew to connect you with your moments that matter most. It's an honor and privilege, and I'm going to do everything I can to make this the best flight you've ever had at United Airlines. Flying time today is going to be 1 hour and 29 minutes. That'll get us into the gate on time. Weather differs fine. They're currently reporting partly cloudy skies with a temperature of 80 degrees. This is where I get to introduce you to my purser. This is my purser, Tabitha, right here. I just had a briefing with Tabitha and her crew down on the airplane. I can tell you they're ready for you, excited to see you, and they're going to give you a great service today. So with that, I have just two of United's best gate agents here who are going to help you through the boarding process. So we'll get out of the way and let them do their thing. And I'll see you down the temperature in just a few minutes. Thanks again for being here today, folks.
All right. Woo! And so we'll talk more about that, but I want just thank you so much for being here. I just wanted to have have you on, Mark, as a real life symbol of caring leadership and leading with heart. So welcome.
My pleasure, Heather. It's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So let's tell everybody a little bit more about, where are you in your leadership journey? And then I know you tell them where you're at and how long you've been with United and just all of that. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so I've been with United for 30 years, almost a decade with the Air Force before that, and 25 years as a co-pilot at United before I became a captain. I became a captain in summer of 2017. And have been a captain ever since, and will finish out here in, let's say, 19 months. Required by law to retire at age 65, and that happens in March of 2024. So that's the thumbnail version of where I am and how long I've been in this position.
Wow. Okay. Now I've got to know, everybody's probably intrigued, like, wow, I've never seen that. Like most people have never seen what I saw, which let me just recap for those. And we'll make sure to put a link in the notes too, so you can go check those out. Go check them out now. So basically I'm in the waiting area and I'm kind of exhausted. I'm coming from something related to my father's passing, and I'm kind of exhausted, and everybody else is just slumping around like we all do when we're in the waiting area at these airports. And all of a sudden I hear this voice, like this vibrant voice, come from behind me. I'm like, what is that? And I turn around and it is this gentleman standing there, full uniform, captain's hat. And he has this crew, some of the crew, at least. I don't know if it was everybody, but it was at least some of the crew that was standing right by you. And we'll talk more about that. And so he's talking to us about the flight and telling us it's going to be the best flight ever that we've ever been on, and talking about his crew. And the thing that was the most, I think for all of us definitive, is how you turn around and you talked about, I can't remember, I couldn't hear exactly the word you said, like and you said here's my, almost like my leader or my person on the plane. And I can't remember what you called her.
My purser.
My was it?
Purser. P-U-R-S-E-R. That's the formal name for our lead flight attendant.
I didn't know that. So I was like, yeah. I thought you were saying my person, and my person.
Okay. Note to self: it's not my person; it's my person. I got to be a little more clear about that.
I love it. So
yeah.
you said that, and you talked, positively about her, and then you looked over to the gate agents, and you said, here, I think there are just a couple gate agents, and here they are here, and they're going to take good care of you. And so just really like putting them on a pedestal, not you on a pedestal, was them on a pedestal. Yeah. And again, reassuring us what the weather was going to be, how the flight was going to be, and all of these things. And so everybody, of course, gave you a round of applause. I think people stood up. It was a big deal. I captured a lot of it. I know this is not the first time you've done it. We're more impressed than I'm sure you are on it. It's just kind of who you are and how you choose to show up. But I thought, oh my gosh, in that moment. So what is it first in you, like that? Where did that kind of like that desire to be that kind of leader come from?
I have to credit United Airlines for that. United takes great pride in how they prepare captains to take command. We have a formal program where captain selectees gather for a week of what we call captain upgrade training, And for 5 days, Monday through Friday, we are challenged to think about putting ourselves on a continuum of what kind of captain we want to be. There's the guy over here we call Captain Average, and then there's, Wall of Fame captain over here, and we all get paid the same. So who do you want to be? How do you want to show up? And wherever you choose to put yourself on that continuum, what are you going to do to make that happen? 5 days of that. And, through all kinds of different conversations, we meet with, actually we met with the highest level executives at United Airlines. All of Mahogany Row showed up to greet the new captains and tell us how important they thought that role is for the company, including the CEO. So that was a turning point for me. And, we can talk about the history of the company if you'd like, but I had never seen myself, over on this end of the leadership scale for those 25 years. But for a number of reasons, there was a turning point that week for me. So, I hand credit to United for putting me in the place to examine that and do a little bit of soul searching and decide for myself, okay, how do I want to finish out my career? What kind of significance do I want to have? Viktor Frankl, about Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor, wrote that life's not so much a quest for pleasure or power as it is a search for meaning. And United put me in a place where I could have a meaningful, I could do meaningful work if I chose to do that. And so that started the thought process. And it took me a while to get to where I am today. I've been doing it for 5 years. What you saw is something I've been honing for 5 years. And at this point, it's very fun for me to do. But that's sort of the background of what started it for me. I think that was your question.
Yes, it was. And actually there's as I hear that, I want to go deeper, because just me, I'm kind of a human behavior specialist. That's what I do.
Yeah.
So thinking back further, so over that previous 25 years, so I guess it is kind of your history with him.
Yeah.
What was it did you feel like, were you showing up anywhere near where you show up today, the 25 years before that? And if not, why not? And if yes, how, and how was it different?
Yeah. So United has a very colorful history, as do all the major airlines. How did I show up? I showed up to give my best work as a technician. Let's put it that way. I was a very good co-pilot. I knew my stuff. I maintained my skill levels, those kinds of things. And in truth, it wasn't my place to lead the flight. So I never really was confronted with that on that level. I could certainly influence my captains, but United, as all the major airlines have done over the last 30 years, had an up and down kind of history. Just one major high point, or one major event, of course, was the bankruptcy that we endured, the longest, most expensive bankruptcy in the history of commercial aviation. We entered that bankruptcy in December of 2002, finished in February 2006. And that was a very, very dark period in the industry. And it created a adversarial relationship between all of labor and all of management. And that extended from 2002, early 2002, till the mid 20 teens, we'd call it, say 2012, 2013, something like that. From the bankruptcy, we merged with another major airline, Continental, in 2010. That was sort of started to gain some momentum on the upswing. And then we had a change in senior leadership in 2015, I think it was. Previous CEO, who was the tail end of the bankruptcy era, who took us, from bankruptcy into normal operations, so to speak, to a leadership team that was very focused on prospering the enterprise. And that was the first time I'd had a CEO that I felt, or a leadership team for that matter, that I felt was interested in actually prospering the enterprise, and recognized that in order to do that, he needed his customer-facing employees, team members, if you will, on board. And first thing he did when he took over was he went on a listening tour. And I'd seen that before. You know, he was like my 9th CEO in 30 years. And they always go on listening tours. But he was the first one that actually listened and chose to implement what he learned from the employees. And I got to tell you this. I learned about the change of leadership. I was in flight operations, flight planning in Los Angeles. One of my friends came in and said, "Hey, Mark, did you hear we got a new CEO?" No. Well, I mean, it was totally unexpected. And I said, "Who was it? Anybody know?" He says, "Yeah, it's a guy by the name of Munoz. He was on our board of directors." Okay, if you say so. And I went down to my airplane, and the flight attendants were abuzz. And I've just got to tell you, something happened instantly. There was a change in the air at United Airlines. All of the baggage from the bankruptcy era evaporated in a moment. And here's the image I like to tell. Are you a baseball fan at all?
I have 4 kids and 3 boys. So yes, I'm
Okay.
not a fan, but I get it totally. Yes.
So you may understand the baseball season is 2 halves. You got the first half that goes up to the All-Star break, and then there's a big party. And then the last half of the season is the run to the championships, right? So there's a phenomenon that happens every once in a while. You've got a team who just cannot win the first half of the season, cannot win. And at the All-Star break, a new manager comes in, and then all of a sudden they can't lose. Nothing fundamental has changed, but they brought somebody new in that changed the air. And that's what happened to us. Overnight, everything was different. Nothing fundamentally changed, but Oscar came in and everything was different. There was just something about this guy that everybody felt. Interestingly, now your business is carrying leadership from the heart, right? Oscar had a massive heart attack 3 months after he came on board. Went away for a while, came back a few months later after having a heart transplant. And his mantra became leading from the heart. And we all just, ran with that, absolutely embraced it. And so here we are now. And he started implementing all the things that he had learned during his listening tour and creating this company that he wanted to lead the industry from the heart. And of course, that was in 2015. 2017, I became a captain. This is the new United Airlines. And here I was being challenged to embrace this new leadership team that I'd waited 25 years to see. And here he is, and he cleaned up Mahogany Row, created this leadership team that's all about leading from the heart. And as I came out of Captain Upgrade, I just felt very at home with that. And I started thinking, okay, I'm going to be a part of this team. I want to be part of this team. How do I build that out as one captain flying one flight, 175 passengers from point A to point B? And so that's how United created an environment then that enabled me to become, I'm like a baby in a playpen. How many kids you got? How many children you say you have? 4. So you had a playpen when they were small. Yep. You put them in the playpen, you throw all the toys in there, and for a while they bounce against the walls of the playpen wanting to get out, right? But then they realize they're not going anywhere, so let's make the best of this, right? So you've thrown in all these toys, and they have complete freedom inside the walls of that playpen to play with whichever toy they want to play with. All of them, none of them. They can sit there and suck their thumb. They take a nap. They can do whatever they want to do inside the boundaries of the playpen. Well, I have boundaries. the federal aviation regulations, company policy, but within that policy, within that playpen, I've got all these toys. How do I want to play with these toys? And so I've spent some time thinking about what I want to create with these toys to ease my passenger's journey.
Oh my goodness. How profound. Those who are listening, if you've listened to this show before, and if you haven't, please continue, because I continue to highlight just amazing leaders like Mark. But as we think about leadership with heart, caring leadership, all the behaviors I'm constantly trying to highlight and outline, actually, not just from my words, but by showing you through the behaviors of other leaders. And I always like to say this, that this is not a journey to perfection. If you notice, it's a journey to continuous improvement. It's, as he was talking about, I'm always tweaking. I'm taking this toy and that toy, and I'm seeing how I can move this thing and this thing to elicit this kind of thing and this thing. So I talk a lot about like employee experience, customer experience, and a journey that that they are on. And as leaders, the role that leaders play. And you just, the story you told about the change in the CEO, and now he breathed a different life into the entire organization and changed the leadership team, and they breathed life, and they then made a choice to show up as caring leaders, exhibiting certain behaviors, then asking you at the captain level, what are you going to do? And giving you this, like you said, there's we all have this at work. We all have kind of certain guardrails. Yeah. And we then get to choose what we do inside those guardrails, inside the playpen.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that most people think that they're more limited than they are.
Yeah.
I do think most people are waiting for permission to show up like you did. And like you choose to. Do you show up perfectly every single time? Is everything perfectly done? I'm sure it's not. I mean, none of us are.
No.
Boy, that demonstration was, to me, real close to excellence in my mind. And so kudos to you, because I'm going to keep, bringing that there. And I
thank you.
That when I posted this out there, people were like, "Oh my gosh!" And I'm like, "Yeah, I wonder." And they're like, "I'm intrigued too. Like, what happened?" One of the things as I was thinking through this, I'm thinking about what it was those first 25 years. So what kept you there the first 25 years? Was it a hope of a leadership like that? What was it in your mind? Because I mean, you're a smart guy, very charismatic. I mean, you could have gone many different directions. I know you did all that training, but you could have gone any other airline. What was it that kept you there before the light was really breathed back in?
You're very kind. Thank you for saying that. I will tell you this, being an airline pilot is a good gig. It's a good gig. And took a long time to get qualified to be an airline pilot, and then on to be an airline captain. Like I say, I was in the Air Force for 9 years, 3 months, right out of college. Learned how to fly, and changed uniforms. Really, is what I did, from the military uniform to the airline uniform. And every job has its challenges, and every job, if you look for them, has some pretty cool things about it, I would imagine. These are the only two career type jobs I've had. But within that, there have been some really bad things that have happened. There have been some really good things that have happened. And you look at the big picture, and you got a choice every day to stay with it, or if you really think the grass is greener somewhere else, you're free to go in America. And it never got to the point where I really, it was really so bad that I just couldn't stand it. I knew people that did leave during the bankruptcy era. I mean, things were really, really dark during the dark ages. What happens in bankruptcy is bad. Let me just say that nobody wants to go through a corporate bankruptcy. And I won't list all the things that I saw among my peers, but you don't want to do that. But it was always worthwhile for me to get up, put on my uniform, and go and give my service to my captains, to my company, to my passengers as a co-pilot. And always in the distance was this idea that someday I'll be a captain. And in our industry, that's when the real financial rewards come. I mean, top of the industry, seniority, big airplanes, just the way it's structured. So everybody works towards that we finish our career at the top of our career. So there was always that out there as a motivator as well. So I feel like I'm kind of rambling here. I'm not telling
that's
you.
perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Okay. All right. Good.
Because, as we think about, as people are listening now, so there are people who are listening, from all walks and all industries and sectors and positions in the company. So most of them are going to be leading people, but at least one person, or it could be a CEO of a big company. It could be an entrepreneur of a startup. It could be all kinds of folks listen to the Leadership at the Heart podcast. So I say that because as we think about our workplaces, and even if we don't have roles open for people for promotion, because there's a lot of people say, I want to promote, and they want to promote like in 2 years. It's like, I don't have that.
Yeah.
There could be, what are their carrots? What are the things that keep them still tied to you in the heart? Like, don't want to leave because they're so tied to you, that you've endeared them to you, that they're willing to wait for the time when they can be promoted, is kind of the thing I'm trying to get to here. And so I think your journey, even though there was some roughness to it, there was still those things, that getting up and suiting up and being prepared and getting the mindset right and supporting the crew and supporting the captain and all of that is something. I think it goes pretty deep. I think we all can take away something, whether we're pilots or not. We can all take away a lot, I think, from that. And then thinking about the main focus of my consulting practice is helping organizations create cultures of listening. That is our thing. So when I think about Mr. Munoz, that was his last name, right?
Correct.
Yes. And I think about him coming in, you said, everybody did the listening tours, but he actually listened. And what you equate to listening is he acted on what he heard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And so that is we keep trying to teach that, is what we're doing to organizations, so that they, in whatever ways they're listening, surveys, listening sessions, roundtables, to town halls, all the things you're talking about. What are they doing about it? What are they doing, and how are they showing proof, or like evidence, I guess, of the action? And it sounds to me like there were a lot of ways. Now, you said he went in and kind of, changed the leadership team. How do you think he went about that? He just was looking for specific people.
In one instance, I'm pretty sure he was looking for a specific person. Our current CEO is a fellow by the name of Scott Kirby. And I like to say that Oscar poached Scott from American Airlines. Scott was, I think he was president at American at the time. And there were a number of reasons why Scott might have left American. I would like to, let's put it this way. There was a coincidental word got out that Scott was leaving American, and then boom, the very next day he became CEO of, not CEO, the president of United. So I'm sure there was stuff going on behind the scenes. So I think Oscar handpicked Scott. The rest of the senior leadership, I don't know so much about. I just know that there was some churn up there. And I know that Oscar had a certain personality type that he was looking for. And in his mind, and I'm putting words in his mouth now that may or may not belong there, but he was advocating, like I said, leading from the heart. So I mentioned a few minutes ago about how, okay, in my role as a captain, what does that mean? How do I manifest that? Well, he had to think the same thing. How do we manifest that? How do what do I put in place to make United a company that leads the industry from the heart and leads our people from the heart and takes care of our passengers from the heart? So I think that leadership change all the way up there at Mahogany Row was part of that. And he brought in the people that saw his vision and were willing to embrace his vision and then act to bring his vision into reality. And then, the other thing that those folks were willing to do is push the authority to bring that into fruition down to us in the trenches. And that was a bit of an epiphany for me. Several of these epiphanies just sort of, landed all over me once I opened myself up to this idea of, all right, well, again, what am I going to do about it? And I recognize that the absolute senior leadership of the company is saying, Mark, take care of our folks, take care of your crew, take care of your passengers. If you do that for us, then United will prosper. And if United prospers, there'll be more work for you. There'll be more work for everybody else. We'll grow. We'll lead the industry. Interestingly, one of the comments in the thread that followed your posting, somebody from United commented that what they saw that day was an acting out of United's Core 4 policy, and that's the values of the company. And what those are is United's going to do everything safe. And then there's 3 other corporate values: safe, caring, dependable, and efficient. And the order of those is intentional. Everything is safe. We do everything as safely as we possibly can. Everything. But of the other 3 values, caring is next. And so that's a recognition of this new corporate personality that Oscar tried to create. And I think he was successful in doing. And that gave me then permission. Every decision that I make, they ask me, Mark, just, you can do anything you want to do. Don't break any laws. Don't break any company policy. But within that, the playpen, use these 4 guiding ideas to make your decisions. And then if you do something that we would not necessarily agree with, if you can show us that it was, this is the way you did it, we'll have a conversation about that. And we may have some training, but you won't be in any trouble. We'll just talk about it. So they gave me liberty. They gave me freedom to be creative as I want to be inside that playpen. If I use these as a guide, then I can do anything that I want to do to take care of my crew, take care of my passengers, take care of the company. And then again, if I'm successful at that, then in my own little one flight with 175 passengers, then I've done my part to prosper the enterprise as well. And we all flourish from that.
Again, I'm just like sitting in this. This is me just taking it all in. This is the work I do. So this is just so intriguing. I tell you, I'm wondering, I'm thinking about, this is just from your perspective and what was happening. And now I just want to just take a little bit of time and talk about what kind of a response have you gotten both from customers and from team members on the flight? And like, are there flights that are you on consistently with a certain crew, or your crew's different every single time? But since you've been doing it for over 30 years, you probably have the crews you see a lot. I'd love to know more about that. And I think a lot of people would be. I'm kind of curious on that. So how does the internal people respond when you show up this way? And then also, any other kind of interesting responses you've gotten from customers besides the one that was, my flight in my area?
Yeah. So really interesting how I love that question. So I don't fly with the same crews all the time. I'm based in Denver. It's my domicile. There are, so many thousand pilots or so many thousand flight attendants. Occasionally, because I fly so much, we all fly so much, our paths cross from time to time. So I will fly with the same flight attendant, once or twice a year. And there are several of those. So and occasionally there are some that I fly with more frequently than others, but as a general rule, I don't have my crew of flight attendants that fly with me around. No, I don't. And in fact, for 15 of those 25 years, I was actually based in the West Coast. I lived in Denver and would get on a plane just like you do, fly to work in San Francisco, pick up my flight and go. And so that was based on, that was with San Francisco based flight attendants and other San Francisco based pilots. So it's only been in the last 5 years that I've been flying with Denver based pilots and flight attendants. That said, there are fewer pilots than flight attendants. And so there are several first officers that I've had the joy of flying with on more than one occasion. And we've become friends. We stay in touch. We go down to Monument and have breakfast at our favorite breakfast eatery down there. So we just meet up and talk about these kinds of things. So as far as the response that I get, everyone brings their own history to every flight. The passengers, the flight attendants, the gate agents, the first officers. So, they're all going to have their different personalities. And there are plenty of those in each of those capacities that are over here, just, okay, I'm just going to show up. I'm just going to do my thing. because I'm going to get paid the same amount as this flight attendant over here or this first officer over here who's given, trying to create meaning. So it just depends on how they show up. And I give them freedom to show up as they are. And I show up as I am. And I give them all my best every time. Another one of your commenters talked about the setting the tone. That's sort of a cliche. I almost hate to use it. A better expression that somebody told me once was, the mood of the captain becomes the mood of the jet. And I'm always mindful of that. Even on days that I'm not in my best place in my head, personally, for whatever reason, I make my best effort as I step onto the jet bridge to go down to the jet to do what I need to do to be the leader that my crew, my team, my passengers, and by the way, my team includes my passengers. So I do everything I can to shift into the leader that I know they need and fix my mood, do whatever, so that I can create a positive environment so that I come on with a positive mood, so that the mood of the jet becomes positive for everybody. And I've had very good general responses to that. I've gotten emails from passengers. I've gotten emails from other crew members. I've gotten emails from other staff, customer service representatives down in Houston, walking past my gate as I do my PA. They stop and then they send me an email and talk about how fun that was and how much they enjoyed that. So it's been very well received. I've had some folks who just want to stay over here, and they get a little bit irritated, because they're over here, they're comfortable over here. And when they see me doing what I can to get as far over here as I can, and like you said, I still got a ways to go. I got a long ways to go. But they see me over here, and so they feel challenged. And it's like, dude, come on. Now you're making me put in some more effort.
Yeah.
So there are always going to be those. And I give them liberty to be who they are. And because of what their background is. Plato told us a long time ago that we should be kind, for everyone we meet is fighting a hard battle. And I try to be mindful of that. Dude, if you want to be miserable, knock yourself out. I'm coming over here. Come on, let's go fly. And, we'll talk about it on the layover or whatever.
I was telling you, because you were like a bright spot on my day, coming back from getting some of my father's belongings from him passing. And so that was kind of I was feeling dragged down by it. And I literally felt myself almost like laying over the in the waiting area. Just like, ah. And then I heard your chipper voice and I was like, wait. And it just like perked me up. And I do feel like many of us, whether we use the airport and the waiting area as kind of a metaphor, but we're kind of like that in the workplace. We're just kind of, we hear about this quiet quitting thing, which is like been going on forever. This is not a new phenomenon, right?
Nothing new about it. It's just got a name now.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a different name. But like, just I'm gonna lay here, but I'll get my work done. So it's like done on the timeline, and like everybody, I'm not mean to people, so I'm collaborating with people, but I still quite have it in me. And then there's something, in your case, Mr. Munoz, and in my case, that day, you, and I'm like, I gotta do, and in a lot of other people's cases, you. I think that's kind of cool. So the message I wanted to really impart upon people is, first, what you said a lot of times, is that we have a choice how we show up.
Yeah.
And that this caring leadership heart thing might seem squishy, touchy, feely, silly, and act whatever you might think, but it produces in others these positive emotions that they will never forget. And so the question is, do you want to be the pilot who produces this emotion, this memory in my mind and everybody that day in their mind, that they will never forget in a positive way, that elevates a brand? Or do you want to be the opposite, the one who says, I don't want to go that far. I don't want to put in any energy. I don't want to do that, so that people remember me as, they either don't remember me because don't produce that memory. So in the end, they're like, who's the person again? Or you give them a negative memory.
Yeah.
And I think we all have a choice for that. And I love the fact that they put you through that 5-day thing and they made you really be centered, like mindset wise, and then be like, what can you do? Because that's exactly how I'm really pressing people to do more and more of that. more and more of that, because I feel like people blame leaders or blame people a lot. Like, those people over there made it where I couldn't do that thing.
Right.
And I'm like, no, let's think about that differently. Let's think about that differently. Yes,
everybody's in their own playpen.
Yeah, I love that idea. That is a great analogy. I could just completely see myself. I can see that, how that can work. And I remember going through this merger, and I'm in the middle of this merger, and I see everybody that already works there going like downhill. The culture's going down here, the trust is going downhill. And I'm kind of like you. I choose to uplift. I want to recognize people. Doesn't matter if they're on my team or not. But then I just felt myself going, losing energy, getting afraid, becoming afraid, having a lot of anxiety. And I went to the head of HR and I said, listen, we got to do something about our culture. Our trust is going downhill. We have to do something. And she goes, you're right. We really do need to. You should go do something about that. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, I'm leading customer.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
Wait, what?
But that's not what I was bargaining for.
Yeah. It wasn't I did take it on because I kind of already acted like that role. But it was like, as I think about where I was from a mental place and then making a choice in my own right to say, somebody's got to do something. And then she says, it should be you. And I could have said, nope, not me, and walked away. But I kind of said, like, I'll do this. I'll do something, because I have to get my own place, my own self out of the muck, as I call it. And for temporarily it worked, and there was a layoff that ended up happening after that. I was one of the 200 people laid off, and that was okay because now I'm doing all of the amazing work I do today. So it's okay, right? It was meant to be that way. But I had to make a choice, because at first I was making a choice to be stuck in the muck and be like being dragged down like everybody else. And finally, I can't keep making this choice.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I want one last thing, because I know we're about to end. The turning point. That I know it was leadership, but was there something else there? Because you said there was a turning point, and you kind of didn't want to. You didn't go. Was a turning point just like you getting finally into to the seat of captain, the new leadership that was kind of coming in, that was preceded that by a couple of years? Was that kind of, though, that was the turning point? Or was there some other thing that just said flip something in your head? Was it that training? Was there anything else in there that I missed?
No, you didn't miss anything.
Okay.
It was what I call a conspiracy of trends. There were a number of things that were happening that all came together in my life to have an impact on me. And so there's two components to that. One is stuff is always happening around us, and a lot of it's good, but as an individual, I had to be open to that. So all of this stuff and it was happening. There was a room of, I think, 17 captains in our class. And out of that, I don't know what the distribution was on that continuum, but they all had the same external factors happening to them that were happening to me, 100%. And there were still guys that came out of that class over here. And there are guys that came out of the class, much further over here than I was. But because Oscar had put that environment in place, and because I was up there for 5 days, and I thought, if I'm going up here for 5 days, let's go in with an open mind and see what we see and make a decision. Those two components were the outside and the inside. I had prepared myself for that. And so it was somewhere during those 5 days. I remember walking up there, and at the door of the classroom, the seminar room where we were all going to meet, there was a big vertical banner, kind of like, I'm sure you've got one that's got your lovely face on it with a microphone and a book and all this kind of, Heather Younger. Well, it was that kind of banner, but it was a captain's hat, captain's epaulets, and the simple words, "Welcome, Captain." And that was the first time that I had been psychological in that place of considering myself to be a captain. Now what? So it was up there during that time. So that's when it happened.
There's so much goodness here. There really is so much goodness here. Are there any final words of wisdom? Any things you'd like to leave people that are listening of, again, about the idea of making a choice? Is there any kind of final word or something you'd like to share with them to get them to a place and to keep them there for the long haul, for the people they lead?
So one of the central concepts that I use that helps guide me is I spent quite a bit of time thinking about trying to figure out, okay, where do my passengers, my customers, those who this is all about, where can I meet them? Where are they all coming from? Where do they need me? And it didn't take me long to figure out that passengers come to me stressed. I mean, they get to the front of the airport. They have to go through this Disney-esque queue to just drop their bags. Then they go to the TSA, another line. They have an unpleasant experience with the TSA agent. And in Denver, they go down to the basement, get on the cattle car, get crammed in with a bunch of folks. And how many times have you heard that metallic voice in the please stay clear of the doors. This train is departing. They get barked at by this robot. And, they're exhausted by the time they get to me. They get to me at the gate, at the boarding area where you were, sit down and have a chance to just decompress a little bit. And then they start thinking about, okay, the next thing that's going to happen is I got to get past the gate agent. They're going to bark at me about my bags. And then I got to go down this hot jet bridge. And and then I'm going to have to fight for overhead space. And so they're only decompressed for a minute and they start getting all spun up again. That's where I can meet them. That's where I can make a difference. And that's where, that's the guiding point. So for your listeners, I would say, where do your people need you? Where are they coming from? Where you can touch them and change what they're feeling in that moment. That's what you look for. You look for that, and all of a sudden you are the subject of the Maya Angelou platitude that, people forget what you say, people forget what you do, they'll never forget how you made them feel. And if you can take your people, your teammates, your subordinates, those that you lead, or your customers, hopefully your customers, you can touch your customers, but whoever you can touch, your superiors, your leaders who are leading you, where do they need you? And how can you touch them? I would invite your listeners to give that some thought, and then they come up with their own, way of being.
Oh my goodness. Captain Mark Hardcastle. Oh, wow. That was so much to take in. You are a man after my own heart. I tell you, oh my gosh, those words are just powerful. I hope everybody who's listening has been taking this in, because I know I am. I'm just kind of like, I even have coffee here because I'm sipping my coffee. It's like I'm by a warm fireplace and I have found home. And I think that's the key for those who are listening. Kind of my final parting words is, are you home for the people who look to you for guidance and leadership?
Yeah.
That's the final question I want you to be thinking about. And you, Mark, have helped all of us, I think, get there. So I really appreciate you. I'm so glad I grabbed you as soon as I saw you. I'm glad you're on here, and I'm going to make sure we get this read about, and everybody, I'm sure, on here. Don't forget, if you're listening, please do share this far and wide. This is the good stuff, right? This is how more and more leaders understand what this really means and the impact it can have. And so definitely share it far and wide. I appreciate you so much, Mark, really coming on here. And congratulations for 5 years ago, and whoever was smart enough to put you in that role and set you up like they did. Oh my goodness. So United already now has made it to the top of my mark. So great brand representative as well.
Well, thank you so much, Heather. I'm so glad you grabbed me outside the door of the airplane. And hey, Captain, come over here. I want to talk to you. I want you on my podcast. So thank you so much for doing that. This has been such a fun experience. I've enjoyed the conversation, and I'm honored. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Leadership with Heart podcast. Be well.